Zarvok adjusted the targeting lens on his gauntlet, the red reticle flickering against the arid dusk of Sector E9, one of the last human-controlled zones now under Galactic enforcement. He hated this place. Dust clung to everything, as if even the wind refused to touch the decaying ruins. The Empire had reduced Earth to scattered settlements and wilderness, yet this sector resisted full assimilation. Zarvok considered superstition. Stories of cursed soil, of rebels hiding in dead cities. But superstition didn't jam weapons, and last week, an entire recon squad vanished here without a trace. His boots crunched over shattered glass as he moved to the collapsed remains of a human dwelling. Moss and rust covered broken tech. Ancient posters fluttered limply on cracked concrete. Faded pictures of pre-conquest humanity. Smiling, deluded, weak. He sneered. A soft movement caught his eye near the edge of a collapsed overpass. There, sitting on the rusted frame of an old vehicle, was an old man. Zarvok slowed. The human was unarmed, wrapped in a tattered coat that might have once been military, barely recognizable now beneath dirt and time. A gray beard hung past his collar, and deep lines carved into his face like topography, shaped by years rather than genetics. The old man looked at him with placid disinterest, as though Zarvok was just a passing storm. "You're in a restricted zone," Zarvok announced, voice modulated through his translator. "You'll identify yourself." The man didn't move. "You boys still stomping around pretending you own the place?" Zarvok took a step closer. Under Empire Decree 7.9, trespassing in a secure territory is punishable by summary execution. State your designation or I'll carry out enforcement. "Young man," the human said slowly, "do you know what happened the last time someone pointed a gun at me?" Zarvok raised his plasma caster. The core buzzed to life. "You got 3 seconds." The old man's gaze didn't shift. They stopped breathing. Zarvok fired. The beam screamed forward and vanished. No impact. No scorch mark. Just air. Confused, Zarvok checked the readout. No malfunction. No overload. The shot simply ceased to exist. The old man stood. It was subtle. No flex of muscle, no dramatic shift. But something in the air changed. The wind fell silent. Insects ceased their song. For a moment, Zarvok swore he could hear his own heart through the synthetic fibers of his armor. "You're not the first," the man said, brushing a leaf from his shoulder. "And likely not the last." "I don't know what kind of trick this is," Zarvok growled, trying to recalibrate his weapon. "You're just another relic from a species that lost." The old man's eyes were bright now, like steel held to flame. "Lost," he said quietly. "Boy, your kind didn't win anything. Earth just got tired." Zarvok took a step back without realizing. The weight in the air pressed inward. His HUD flickered once, twice, before clearing. He opened comms. Static. The man walked forward slowly, each step deliberate. "You should leave," he said. "In 2 hours, you'll wish you had." Zarvok raised the backup sidearm and fired. The bullet stopped inches from the man's chest, hung in the air as if trapped in amber, then dropped harmlessly to the ground. Something inside Zarvok faltered. Training surged to the surface. He took another step back, breath ragged. "I don't know what you are," he hissed, "but if you're a threat to the Empire..." The man tilted his head. "You think I'm a threat?" he said, almost laughing. "I'm a consequence." Then he turned and walked toward the mist-covered tree-line. "Wait!" Zarvok shouted. "Who are you?" The old man paused. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me." He looked over his shoulder. "John." And then he was gone, swallowed by the forest as though the trees bent to let him pass. Zarvok stood frozen for a long moment, hands trembling, until a sharp chirp from his wrist plate broke the silence. His sensors were back online. Weapons nominal. Comms restored. Everything reading green, as if nothing had happened. He replayed the footage. Blank. Just static. The old man wasn't there. Zarvok stared at the empty screen. A phantom encounter. A weapon failure. A name. He had no idea who John was. But something in that name, spoken like thunder muffled by memory, rattled something deep inside him. He didn't realize his legs were moving until he was already running back toward base, toward command, toward answers. Behind him, the wind returned, gentle and quiet, brushing across the forgotten ruins of a planet that had once waged war against the stars. And somewhere in the distance, beneath layers of forest and shadow, a man lit a match with steady fingers and checked his watch. 1 hour, 53 minutes. Zarvok stormed to the reinforced corridors of Outpost Traction, still half-wired from the encounter. His boots struck the floor in perfect rhythm, metal echoing through the sterile silence. The automated security nodes acknowledged him with cold green lights, oblivious to the fury boiling in his chest. Behind his visor, his eyes were wild. Something about that man, John, had disrupted more than just his weapons. He'd been trained to handle threats, not ghosts. The control center shimmered with activity, lines of alien officers monitoring planetary data, orbital traffic, and active engagement feeds. When Zarvok entered, conversation dipped. He was one of the elite. Enforcers rarely returned shaken. His usual confidence was replaced by urgency. "I need a full analysis," he barked to the nearest technician, a scrawny observer with pale skin and nervous tendrils. Section E9. Visual logs. Sensor feeds. External atmospheric conditions. Everything. The technician flinched but obeyed, transferring feeds to the main screen. Zarvok's footage loaded first. Body cam data, target telemetry, pulse logs, each system functioning flawlessly. Except there was no human. The screen showed empty ruins, devoid of life. His commands played clearly, his weapons firing. But to the system, Zarvok had shouted into silence and shot at air. There was no record of anyone else in the zone. The seat was empty. The bullet simply dropped without explanation. "That's impossible," he muttered. The technician hesitated. "Sir, the equipment's clean. No signs of tampering. No data loss. The sensors show there was nothing there." That man spoke to me. He stopped my weapon. "The bullet." "Sir, if I may," interrupted a deeper voice. Zarvok turned to see Commander Tarsan approaching from the rear of the chamber, a decorated veteran of the Earth campaigns. Tarsan was older than most, his exo-armor bearing faded battle crests from wars the younger soldiers only read about. His eyes were like stone, set deep and cold. "Walk with me." Zarvok followed, jaw clenched, fury restrained by protocol. They entered the private command chamber, its walls soundproofed, lighting dimmed. "I've reviewed your report," Tarsan said, tone unreadable. "This man," he gave a name. "John," Zarvok said. No surname. No ID tags. He acted like he knew what was coming. He said I'd regret it in 2 hours. Tarsan leaned against the steel desk. "Did he say anything else?" "He said he wasn't a threat. He said he was a consequence." For the first time in years, Zarvok saw something shift behind Tarsan's eyes. A flicker, not fear but memory. "There's an old name buried in Earth's conflict files," the commander said after a long pause. "John. It was always fragmented. No last name, no rank. Just John." He appeared in field reports going back decades before the surrender. One-man incursions. No survivors. Entire battalions neutralized with surgical precision. Fleet commanders dead in their bunks. His signature was silence. No wreckage. No chaos. Just absence. "Are you saying he's a myth?" Zarvok scoffed. "I'm saying he's a problem," Tarsan replied. "One the Empire failed to solve." Zarvok frowned. "We conquered Earth. Their armies are dust. This is just one man, aged and alone. And yet he made you retreat," Tarsan said coolly. "He disrupted your weapon, erased himself from your logs. That doesn't sound like an old man with a grudge. That sounds like a contingency." Outside, the lights in the command hub dimmed briefly. A low chime rang, an anomaly ping. Tarsan tapped the comms. "Report." "Commander," came the voice from operations. "We're registering a mass reading on deep space sensors. Object approaching at high speed, translate, but it's not on any registry. Trajectory? Straight for Zarnus Prime." Zarvok's blood chilled. That's the homeworld. We know, the operator said, tight with unease. Estimated arrival, 74 minutes. Tarson's face was impassive, but his hands curled. Any identification? None. No emissions, no beacon. Stealth grade profile. But it's not ours. We're trying to match its energy signature. Zarvok turned to him. You think it's connected? I don't think, Tarson said. I remember there was a black project mentioned in the old Earth War files. Something called Requiem Protocol. Unauthorized missions. Deep infiltration. Executed by humans trained not to fight wars, but to end them. Why wasn't this made public? Because even we didn't believe it. The stories didn't fit with a narrative of a beaten species. Earth surrendered. They laid down their weapons. But what if someone never got the message? Or worse, what if someone ignored it? Another officer rushed in. Sir, planetary satellites above Zarnis Prime are going dark, one by one. No external interference. It's like they're being overwritten. Zarvok's pulse thudded in his throat. We need to alert the Senate, he said. Tarson nodded. I'll initiate high alert and scramble planetary defense. But if that man is who I think he is, this won't be a battle. It'll be a demonstration. He moved to command console and opened a secured archive, files decrypted, scrolling rows of blacked-out operations with only a few surviving lines of legible code. One name was repeated, always in emergency dispatches, distress logs, or classified memos. John. Beside it, status, unconfirmed. Location, unknown. Threat level, black. Zarvok stared at the file. You should have killed him, Tarson said without venom. I tried. Then hope, the commander said quietly, that Zarnis's time left apologize. Far above Earth, something unseen crossed the silence of space. Unregistered, undetected by most sensors, riding a cold and ancient trajectory toward the heart of an empire. In its hull, a single human heart beat steady. Behind his closed eyes, John waited, and the hour drew near. Zarnis Prime basked beneath its twin suns, the capital world of the Galactic Empire untouched by war for nearly a century. Towering spires of glass and alloy glistened in the midday light, while magnetic railways ferried citizens in silent, efficient patterns. Above the skyline, orbital defense platforms pulsed with energy, each armed with enough firepower to incinerate a moon. On the surface, diplomats, nobles, and high-ranking officials went about their routines, confident in the stability of a world they believed unassailable. The illusion shattered at 1406 Standard Time. It began with a flicker, a momentary disruption in the planetary shield's pulse. No alarms, no explosions, just a glitch so subtle that even the automated systems marked it as negligible. Then communications dropped. Not jammed, erased. Entire frequencies ceased to exist, as if scrubbed from reality. Towers fell silent. Civilian drones froze midair. Hollow screens across the capital blinked once, displaying a single line of text before vanishing into static. You drew first blood. The defense grid activated seconds later, scrambling interceptor squadrons into low orbit. But the targeting systems were blind. Every scanner, satellite, and tracking AI failed to find intruder. Panic rippled through command posts as analysts reported impossible readings. No vessel, no trajectory, yet something was there. Then came the impact, but not the kind the Empire was prepared for. Above the capital's central administrative district, without warning or spectacle, a section of sky warped. Reality folded like torn cloth, and from within stepped a vessel unlike anything recorded. It was matte black, angular and lean, almost primitive, until it moved. The ship shifted without inertia, defying known physics, a silhouette of violence and silence combined. The moment it appeared, everything stopped working. The planetary AI core, thousands of years old, built by 7 allied species, shut down. Orbital batteries exploded from within, not from enemy fire, but from chain reactions in their own reactors. The sky, once lined with protective fleets, now held only falling debris and stunned silence. In the center of the chaos, the ship hovered. No shields, no weapons visible. It didn't need either. Inside, John watched through a cracked viewport, hands folded over his lap. His face was expressionless. This wasn't revenge. This was a message. He pressed a warn control key, and the ship responded like an extension of his will. On the ground, emergency sirens finally blared. The Empire's last functioning systems screaming warnings too late to matter. Civilians ran through the streets, faces upturned to the soundless threat overhead. Officials demanded answers. Soldiers awaited orders. But there were none to give. The first strike wasn't a weapon. It was a memory. Every high-ranking officer on the planet received a direct neural injection via their implants. Scenes of ancient battles long buried, moments of Earth's resistance long suppressed. The fall of the lunar bastion, the scream of a dying Quran fleet, the face of a younger John, expression identical, stepping over alien corpses like a reaper in human form. Now he was back, in the command tower of the planetary citadel. Governor Cyril stood frozen, watching through reinforced glass as a dark shape in the sky hovered like judgment incarnate. "We never knew his name," she whispered. "Just the whispers. The ghost." Behind her, aides shouted. Power grids failed. Emergency shields collapsed. The illusion of control burned away. Then the message came, projected across every surviving screen, device, and implant in the system. John's face, older but unchanged in the eyes. "You thought surrender meant silence. You mistook restraint for defeat. You broke the terms. You targeted civilians. You sent soldiers to a graveyard thinking it was a playground." His voice was calm, surgical. "I gave you 2 hours." Above the city, the ship shifted. Energy gathered along its underbelly. Not a beam, not a bomb. A pulse. It rippled through the atmosphere like a wave of glass. Buildings didn't explode. They vanished. Government archives, military command centers, armories. All erased in sequence, as if peeled from existence by a force too precise for conventional explanation. It wasn't annihilation. It was subtraction. The Empire's core had been hollowed in under 6 minutes. Aboard a transport trying to evacuate dignitaries, Zarvok sat strapped into a crash seat, helmet off, eyes empty. The silence of the old man echoed louder than any siren. Every detail of their meeting repeated in his mind. The weight in the air, the vanishing bullet, the words spoken with terrifying calm. He hadn't believed then. He believed now. Beside him, a pilot muttered, "Is it over?" Zarvok shook his head slowly. "No, it's just started." On the surface, the city that once held the Empire's heart lay in ruins. Not from fire or fury, but from precision. No civilian centers had been touched. Hospitals stood untouched. Children huddled in shelters never knew the enemy's name. John didn't destroy indiscriminately. He demonstrated capability. A single vessel, a single man. He could have ended their world. Instead, he left it broken, humiliated, and terrified. Back aboard his ship, John watched the flames settle into shadows. He tapped a command. The vessel turned, warping space again as it vanished from orbit, heading into uncharted deep space. He didn't need recognition. He didn't need thanks. He only needed them to remember, because next time he wouldn't offer a warning. The Senate convened beneath the shattered dome of the Imperial Hall, a structure once built to project eternal dominion. Now, cracks webbed the ceiling like veins, and the century emitter that once bathed the room in soft light flickered with uncertainty. The Empire had endured wars, insurrections, even internal coups, but never silence. Never defeat without battle. Zarvok stood at the edge of the council floor, helmet under one arm, his uniform scorched and stained. He hadn't spoken since the evacuation. Around him, representatives of 100 worlds argued, demanded, denied. The air buzzed with fear dressed up as protocol. This was terrorism, spat one senator, a tall, blue-scale being from the Avarice system. An unprovoked act. We must retaliate. Retaliate against what? Said another, a soft-voiced diplomat from the Ledhar conglomerate. There's no enemy fleet, no army, just one man and a ship that defied every known law of warfare. Zarvok stepped forward. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the chaos like a blade. We started this. Dozens of eyes turned toward him, some scorned, some curious. Commander Tarsan, seated near the rear, remained still. I encountered the human 2 hours before the incident, Zarvok said. He warned me. He gave me a chance. I ignored it. I thought he was just a myth wrapped in the rags of a dying world. You're telling us you triggered the loss of Zarnis Prime Central Command? A senator barked. I'm telling you we were warned, Zarvok replied, and we didn't listen. The room fell into an uneasy silence. It wasn't guilt. This was the Empire, after all, but the fear of being seen as vulnerable. For millennia, the Senate had built its strength on the narrative that humans had submitted, that their rebellion was crushed, that Earth was pacified and neutered. But now they weren't so sure. A screen came to life at the far end of the hall. Security footage retrieved from a backup cache. Low resolution, fragmented audio, but intact enough to verify. It showed Zarvok in the ruins of Sector E9, speaking to no visible presence. The dialogue played crystal clear. Young man, do you know what happened the last time someone pointed a gun at me? Followed by the failed shot, the floating bullet, the name. John, it wasn't just a warning. It was a signature, not of an assassin or a terrorist, but of something the Empire had no category for. A survivor who didn't need to scream to be heard. A myth walking in daylight. What does he want? Someone finally asked. Zarvok turned toward the questioner. I don't think he wants anything. That's what makes it worse. Tarsan finally spoke. This wasn't vengeance. It wasn't even justice. It was a message. Don't come back. The Senate fell still, and then a new problem arose. A small, blinking notification on the shared console. Low-level clearance. A report filed just minutes ago by a forward scout on the edge of explored space. Unusual gravitational readings. A ripple in subspace. A signal encoded in a dead Earth dialect. Pre-conquest English. It said, he's still moving. John hadn't disappeared. He had departed. The implications settled like ice in the marrow. Zarnis Prime hadn't been the end. It was a beginning, a redefinition. The Empire wasn't fighting a war anymore. It was being held accountable. Tarsan stood slowly. The question now isn't how to kill him. The question is whether we dare provoke him again. Murmurs followed, arguments half-formed before falling away under the weight of truth. Military might have failed. Technology had failed. Pride had failed. And in the void left behind, the specter of one man loomed larger than any fleet. Zarvok didn't stay to hear the final debates. He walked out of the hall and into the broken sun of a world no longer at the center of its own story. The wind felt heavier now, as if history itself was shifting underfoot. He thought about Earth, its ruins, its silence, its graveyards untouched by time. He wondered how many others like John still lived in its shadows, trained not for survival, but for aftermath, for silence. Far away, across the void, aboard a vessel older than its blueprints, John sat in meditation, not thinking, not dreaming, just waiting. The ship hummed with quiet, its course set to no coordinates, traveling not through space but between intentions. He didn't consider himself a savior. He didn't believe in heroes or revenge. He believed in balance, and someone had tipped the scale. He opened his eyes, slow and steady. The stars ahead burned faintly in the distance, indifferent as ever, but he watched them anyway, just in case, because sometimes it only takes one.